Margos, the Sumerian Records social media account shared what, for all intents and purposes, appears to be anti-vax propaganda.
What fucking year is it, dog?
We never left 2020, actually.
Just
I think we could all
doesn't
agree.
end.
So this began by the Sumerian social media account on TikTok sharing the most recent Saturday Night Live monologue from Woody Harrelson.
Brand new sentence.
You are so right. And Woody Harrelson essentially made a joke during that monologue that was, it went actually verbatim. It was, he was being pitched a script.
Okay.
Right? That was his premise. I was pitched a script. In quotes, the biggest drug cartels in the world get together and buy up all the media and all the politicians and force all the people in the world to stay locked in their homes. And people can only come out if they take the cartel's drugs and keep taking them over and over. I mean, who was going to believe that crazy idea? Being forced to do drugs. I do that voluntarily all day long. I like the little, this is just a joke tag at the end of it after... dropping a little bit of like what your current brainworm disease influences at this moment.
So without having a full understanding of the headline of this story with the Sumerian anti-vax stuff.
Oh, are you generally you haven't seen all this?
I haven't really seen it. I'm starting to put together the pieces or why the seeds were planted, so to speak.
And for those of you unfamiliar with Woody Harrelson,
he's a fucking actor. What the fuck does that mean?
Died from a pandemic in the third Planet of the Apes movie.
Oh, yeah.
So even though Sumerian then went on to delete the video, right? Like they shared it and then they like backed out.
What did SNL fucking issue a takedown?
No. Like they did like a, hey, I'm talking over this clip, or I put like some text over this clip that everyone needs to see. It was directly from the Sumerian. We'll get into that.
Right, but like Ash's head didn't float into the fucking screen and he was like, well, actually.
That I'm not certain of, but I don't believe Ash's face is plastered on any of this. No. So then it got deleted, right? But like people obviously picked it up on Twitter and started discussing the fact that they'd shared it.
I don't know if we're going to get to it. Just to clarify, Ash is the owner of the label Sumerian Records.
We will get to that.
Okay.
They then made a post on Twitter which reads, "We aren't anti-vax. We are pro-choice. The COVID vax is killing a lot of young people. Period. And then an additional period. Do your own research." Just going to let that one sit for a moment. This is not political.
You got to let that one sit for a second too, yeah.
It's almost like... It's almost like last day of school and you're hitting the top of the door frame of everything on the way out the door. Like every single bell that you could ring.
Right.
Like every set off red flags for conservative talking points that you could possibly slide into, nailed. This is singular.
This is pulling the fire alarm.
Do your own research.
5 minutes before the bell rings.
We're pro-choice.
Yep.
A lot here to digest, right? Now, people reacted generally within the punk rock community as you would have expected them to, deriding Sumerian for posting nonsense. They followed that tweet up by saying, "We do not believe anyone should be forced to take a COVID booster shot every year for the rest of their lives like the FDA now suggests." Rest of their lives was in all capitals. That is your personal choice. If you think people shouldn't be allowed at shows unless they have every booster every year, then we disagree. Now,
since when the fuck has that been a topic anytime in the past 365 days?
If you're paying attention, you can see this sort of extravagant leap that is made towards the end that's almost meant to like endear them to the crowd they're speaking to, which is to say like, well, do we really not want people to be allowed to go to metal shows? Right? With the way merch kites are. And once again, people generally in the comments deriding Sumerian for sharing these sort of like staunchly conservative viewpoints is I think the best way to describe them. Now, Sumerian defended at one point in the comments by saying, and this is another tweet from the account, freedom of speech, freedom of choice, freedom of bodily autonomy, freedom from government control, freedom from censorship or being bullied for a difference in personal beliefs about your own body. You know, the pillars and foundation of what rock and roll was built on. So you can, once again, you can see a lot of the like sort of playing to the audience that you'd think would see your point of view, right?
So as I'm sort of digesting this entire story, as you're kind of spoon feeding it to me, this is the least surprising hill that I would ever expect Ash to die on. Is that fair? Is this coming as a surprise to many people?
So I don't, outside of knowing and having a level of respect for the monumentous achievement Sumerian Records has become,
Sure,
for the catalog of artists they've had over the years, which is extravagant and currently also includes some of my favorite artists of all time, period, in like I See Stars and Bad Omens. Yes, I'm
Sleeping with Sirens.
I think most of all what I'm surprised is in the same way that I'm surprised anyone ever feels so encouraged to come out and share a viewpoint like this on the biggest platform imaginable, and somehow not knowing the audience that they're speaking to. I think a lot of people, I think this is a very good example, with all due respect, of the type of brainworms that otherwise intelligent people develop by spending way too much time on the internet. So whereas I would think Ash Avildsen, as like an incredibly successful business entrepreneur had bigger and better things to be doing than jumping on the Twitter account and letting everyone know their viewpoint on vaccines in the year of our Lord 2023. And yet somehow here we are, and that's exactly what happens.
Isn't that what owners of massive companies are fucking practically known for nowadays? Take Elon Musk, for example.
And there's a lot of aspects of this that are worth picking apart. Now, I said Ash because at some point in one of the posts, Misha of Periphery, formerly of Sumerian Records, is
the band,
is like, did you guys get hacked? And there was a reply from Ash that was from the Sumerian account that was literally tagged at the end Ash, which I guess at the very least says, hey, in this instance, yes, these viewpoints are coming from me, right? If they're additionally coming from someone else, possibly. Someone in the comments pointed out something that I thought was... So Twitter user Garden Host commented, who is we when Sumerian is speaking from the account? Like, bringing up a very good point in that, like, who exactly is Sumerian representing with these viewpoints when you're tweeting from a brand, like, from the brand account?
Are you speaking
that
for
this is what we think, right?
Are you speaking for yourself, your immediate staff, like the values of Sumerian the company, and then the umbrella effect of is that include all your bands? Like, what does that really
encompass?
Yeah.
And it's kind of fascinating because part of me like finds this to be one of the most interesting aspects of this conversation, because in a sense, this is actually exactly what we want brands to be doing. We want them to be speaking up about issues, even if it could be harmful to the brand, in a sense that, like, you're going to find people agreeing and disagreeing with you, right?
Sure.
Obviously, we want to hear a viewpoint that better reflects the individual that we thought was running this account, as opposed to the one we got, right? It's not that I'm upset Sumerian is speaking up about issues. It's that I'm not wholly in love with the side they've taken, right? And I think that's fair. You know what? Immediately, a lot of what you'll see when someone posts an opinion like this that feels, if it isn't entirely factually inaccurate, is they'll back into a corner and be like, suddenly I can't share my opinion, right? Which isn't true, right?
Mm-hmm.
nobody's stopping you ever from sharing your opinion. There just seems to be a disconnect with a lot of these people who have bigger accounts that when they share an opinion like this, and when it comes from an account that has influence, at the very least from the point of view that they have a significant amount of followers, they don't just become opinions at that point. They might feel like opinions, but when you publish them to such a large following, they can become significantly more influential than that, right? And that feels like, for me, the strongest disconnect every time this happens is that someone like the label owner of Sumerian feels persecuted for not being able to share their viewpoint, or that their viewpoint isn't accepted by the masses. Whereas I think it's more of an issue is that, like, you can have your opinions, and you did, and now people strongly disagree with them. They disagree with when and where you present them. Like it's not just a flat, you can come out and say whatever you want whenever you want. You can, but it's not as if it's without consequence because you label them opinions. You know what I mean?
I think I kind of know what caused Ash to jump off the deep end with this one.
Absolutely love where you're going with this. Cannot wait.
And we need to remember that Ash isn't just the owner of Sumerian Records, right? We're the owner of Sumerian, the brand, Sumerian, the company, the enterprise, which nowadays extends past just music and onto the silver screen, cinema, right?
Where in God's name are you going with this?
Sumerian Films probably pitched a movie recently to a certain celebrity.
All right. Finish this, please.
About, maybe it was about like a big cartel running the country. It's, probably would have thrown in some people from this scene, maybe some people already signed on, maybe a Kellen Quinn, maybe a Danny Worsnop to play some roles, maybe 15 to 20 characters that had shown up in Sons of Anarchy at any given point, and maybe even the Mayans, that TV show, that spinoff. And they maybe needed them like one big ticket celeb on board.
Yeah.
Probably like a Woody Harrelson, maybe.
Sure, precisely. Yes. Whew, that was a journey. So it's circling back. Ultimately, where I land on this is just like baffled. Like, what made you like? Why did you feel so
PR?
encouraged to just suddenly come out with these strong viewpoints?
Right. Like, what exactly was the catalyst? What really caused? I keep saying like jump off the deep end. Maybe that's not the right verbiage here, but in essence, like, man, sharing opinions like this one, unprompted pretty much, in the day and age where public relations is everything, PR is everything, it's career suicide almost. It's insane.
Yeah, yes and no. Because, for what
in practice and on paper, to me,
plenty of people in those comments ready to defend those viewpoints as well.
Of course.
I think so. I think it's that, and then ultimately it's like I just think that it's not surprising that someone within our scene has these views. Our scene is expansive and has a lot of people. And I guarantee you, Ash is not alone in his viewpoints.
Of course not.
It's just the courage felt by people to sort of come out and share them, I think almost speaks against what you're saying, which is maybe we're starting to hit a wall on what being canceled can really do to an individual. You know what I mean? Because just when you think that is the worst thing that can happen to someone, I see an article that says Adidas is renegotiating their contract with Kanye West.
No. Are you making that up?
No. That's something I saw, right? Hey, maybe that was fake, right? Maybe that was inaccurate. But But the point I'm trying to make is that I wasn't surprised. I was like, oh, yeah.
And I was a little
There's
surprised
still-
just now, clearly, but
And maybe I'm a little more separated
Right.
from this in particular, but I was like, well, is there still money to be made there? And what does canceled really mean? You know, if ultimately I went to the store and asked 100 random people who knew a Kanye West song when it played at the grocery store, the latest thing Kanye did, they might shrug their shoulders and be like, I don't have any idea. Like, I just like the music and the shoes, you know? So I still think that being canceled does not really significantly carry the same weight that it used to.
well,
And
this-
maybe that's why people are starting to feel more emboldened to come out and do things like this, you know?
right. And I guess
Not a
to your
weird way of
point,
coming back around.
I don't really see anything coming of this unless we were to continue to stoke the flames. Speaking as if I were Ash here in that instance, I think that if we were to let this situation naturally flame out, die out, whatever, there aren't really any repercussions that are going to be faced here. No one's going to really continue to pursue this from a... I think that there will be more negative buzz around.
Ultimately, I don't want Ash to be canceled, right? I don't think we need to
No.
boycott Sumerian
Yeah.
records. I wish we could get to a point where we could have a discussion like this online and maybe start to show people why when you start to say things like do your own research, you need to realize that you're just parroting talking points at this point. And that's probably where the beginning of this problem originated from. You know, Tom, the vocalist from Patient 67, made a post when this happened. Patient 67, a metalcore band, not on Sumerian or anything, but just
Down under.
made a point that they were like, "Hey, guys, I love you. I love the bands on your roster. Can we not do?
Right, can we just,
not-"
like-
right?
Why
Like,
is this a thing?
that's the closest I saw to what I thought was actually that was maybe the only instance I saw of someone having a response that's like, can we actually take a step back here and like maybe think about what you're saying here, you know,
Right.
as opposed to, you know, what a lot of the general commentary was across this, which is either, yes, speak up, Sumerian, you're, you know, aligning correctly with my viewpoints as a persecuted anti-vaxxer, or,
Important
you
to
know,
remember
shut the
too,
fuck up.
Right. Important to remember in this scene that this is not the first time this has been a take. And if anyone would like to recall when shows were initially coming back and there was talk about having to show proof of vaccination at each and every show that you went to, there's a lot of pushback from the rock and roll music community, whatever, because obviously there is a number of fans, and they might not be the majority, but a lot of the times they are very much the loudest fans who did not have an interest in that and were ready to share that with bands they already supported, with other fans of those bands, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, obviously, you know, a lot of us look up to the institutions and individuals who we admire and want them to mirror our viewpoints, right? I think there's a level of that, and then also a level of that just statistically falling into these trappings where there's not really anything to back up your viewpoint besides a bunch of like-minded individuals who are also screaming into a void about the same thing because they need to feel like they're a part of a minority that they can attach themselves to. And that's the exact type of brainworms that being terminally online creates.
The Breakdown.